Welcome everyone to episode 20 of move.crush.count. This is a podcast produced by J&L Marketing. I am your host, Scott Joseph. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm happy because this is a special episode. This is our last episode of season 1, and our special guest is Jamil Zabaneh. He's the president of J&L Marketing. He's a digital marketing expert. This show is all about striking back against a market, against competitors and consumer marketplace that's trying to marginalize or commoditize you. And when you're feeling, why do they want to do that, right? It's because it makes it harder to differentiate yourself. It makes it almost impossible to maximize your profit potential. And Jamil's going to walk us through a strategy that he calls the how to attack and defend against your competitors with digital marketing. He's going to walk us specifically through that strategy. It's very preemptive. It out-markets, it outsmarts competitors, and he's going to walk us through step by step, or at least give us great tips, a lot of golden nuggets. So let's jump right in. We'll introduce Jamil Zabaneh, and we'll get started.
You're listening to Move, Crush, Count, hosted by Scott Joseph.
Here we are. We are recording the final episode for season 1 of Move, Crush, Count. It is a podcast that is produced by J&L Marketing. Special guest here with us today, Jamil Zabaneh. Jamil is a digital marketing expert, and full disclosure, he's the president of J&L Marketing, so we work together. But as the CEO for J&L for a very long time, I obviously vetted a lot of different people. I've talked to different, whether it's agencies, other experts in digital marketing, and I have to say that I've not run into anybody with the depth of knowledge. And what's important with you is from the marketing standpoint, the way you're able to tie all that together. So I think today's audience is going to love hearing from you. The show is all about how do we strike back, because the bottom line is this. You've got consumers, a consumer marketplace, I should say, and you've got basically, everyone's trying to commoditize. Competitors are trying to commoditize you. And the reason for that is it makes it a lot harder to differentiate yourself or maximize any profit potential. So this show is about how do we strike back against that? How do we win, right? And you're going to show us today how to be preemptive in this. How are we going to outsmart competitors, right? Be more relevant in a very timely way. The title of the show today, or this episode, is going to be how to attack and defend against competitors with digital marketing. You spearheaded and created that, so it's a perfect segue. It should be easy for you to do and answer all these tough questions I'm going to give you.
That's the hope.
So let's dive right in, and let's begin.
Perfect.
All right, so first off, I want everybody to get a good understanding of your experience, your background. Give us the scoop of who you are, and then we can go.
Yeah, well, I'm Jamil Zabaneh. I'm the president here at J&L Marketing, and I've been with J&L for going on 12 years. Prior to that, I was at a company called Standard Register, which was a print document management company. I graduated from Western Kentucky with a double major, entrepreneurship and marketing.
Well, I hope we don't lose anybody on that.
Go Tops. So, and then I came to J&L about 12 years ago, started in sales. After a few years, actually oversaw our national accounts, worked closely with a few manufacturers in the automotive industry, as well as some large accounts outside of automotive. And then about 5 years ago, became the president here at J&L.
So have you had any, when it comes to digital marketing, talk to us, what got you going on that? Where did you learn all this? Any formal training, or was it self-taught?
Good question. So when you came from a print company, which is what Standard Register was, and actually they claimed bankruptcy, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, 12, 13 years ago, that print was slowly declining. And so when I came to J&L, now J&L wasn't doing just print. They had a lot of advantages to what they were offering. They were already moving into the digital side. And then when I started to learn the automotive industry, and I kind of saw a lot of the challenges in the auto industry, I saw what the agencies out there were doing specifically to digital. So about 7 years ago, I worked very closely with yourself and a few other key members at the company where we really started to build out our digital solutions. And that we started with Facebook and display advertising. And then about 5 to 6 years ago, it really went into doing all paid media, which includes Google paid search, Bing paid search, and so on.
And so a lot of people, when they hear digital marketing, the first thing, especially for all these business leaders, and it's not just auto, it's any business leader, because I'll get questioned all the time, and a lot of an ongoing comment that I get, no matter what vertical it is listen, I've tried 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different companies. We've tried a bunch of different approaches, and it seems like no matter who we use or what we try, the results all send out to be the same. So isn't it all pretty much the same? Who can get it to me the cheapest?
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of cases it is. But when you're looking for a digital agency, I think there's 3 key points that you have to look for. And it's no different than finding the right financial advisor. I'm sure you invest in the market, correct? Mm-hmm. And when you're looking for a financial advisor, you're looking for a financial advisor that's going to dive deep into data, correct? Someone that's going to know your situation, is going to understand your goals, short-term and long-term, but then also continuously watch your portfolio and watch the market. It's no different in digital marketing. We're all buying ads through Google, through Bing, through Facebook, just like a financial advisor is buying stocks through the NASDAQ or the Dow. So what makes a good financial advisor is very similar to what makes a good digital marketing agency or an analyst that you're going to work with. Someone that's going to dive into the data before you even launch the campaign, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Number 2, does their marketing strategy truly align with your goals? Typically, it doesn't, especially, and I don't care the industry.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so we work in a lot of different industries. So let's take one of the industries we work in is gourmet foods. So we work with a hot sauce company. So they have hot sauce, they have potato chips, they have ketchup, right? So when we started working with them back in November, their Walmart sales were flat, completely flat. And the way Walmart works is they give you a few SKUs, 4. They test you out. They maybe roll you out. And in this case, rolled it out to about 2,500 stores. And what Walmart wants to see is an increase. So their sales were very flat, and the digital marketing that they were doing wasn't aligning with their goals. Their goal was to push Walmart business because that's how they're going to get more of their products in Walmarts. So what we did is we kind of looked at it from a sense of, okay, well, who do we want to go after? We want to go after known Walmart shoppers, and we want to go after people that actually have an interest in hot sauce. And, the important thing is layering these audiences. So the big difference between digital marketing today versus 5-10 years ago is you can be so laser focused. And that's what most of our clients or most of the people out there don't understand. They feel like digital marketing, you're just buying clicks, you're just buying impressions. Is you can be very, very tailored and very focused. So the strategy that we rolled out with them is on Facebook and Instagram. We went after interest groups, specifically people that were known Walmart shoppers, as well as hot sauce interest groups. We did ads specific to their hot sauce that was available in those locations. And then we told them, we co-branded it with Walmart. Our click-through rate, so that means the percentage of people that clicked the ad, more than tripled. And what we also did is we got a list of all of the 2,500 Walmart locations that had their products. And we looked at the SKUs and we geo-fenced each one of those particular stores. So anybody that stepped foot into one of those locations and they stepped out of it, they started to receive ads from us. Their Walmart
or
sales,
even while they're in there, I would assume.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at my,
Exactly. So their Walmart sales went from $26,000 a week to, on the last 4 weeks, they've averaged $52,000.
So let me ask you this question. What's a tip that you think anybody that's looking, because, a lot of our business is automotive, but it doesn't matter. What's a tip, regardless of industry, that anybody that has a strong focus in digital marketing, right? That's a good percentage of their ad budget. What's a tip you think that anybody that wants to improve results should do?
They need to learn what they're looking at from a reporting standpoint. So I cannot tell you whether it's people that are unsatisfied with their agency or people that are even satisfied with their agency.
What if they don't want to do that?
What if they don't want to do that? I think when you look at So you brought up the automotive industry, right?
Uh-huh.
It's 30 to 40% of your marketing budget. Sooner or later, you have to learn if that is actually producing a result. And you can't just say, well, I had a good month last month. You have to be able to look at the numbers and know what they mean. And really, in less than 30 minutes to an hour, it should be able to be explained. You need to know what your cost per lead is, right? Like you're doing digital marketing because you're trying to generate leads online, typically. That's typically the fashion. You're trying to get calls or people to do a contact form. So you should know what your cost per lead is. You should be able in paid search to have what's called a keyword report. So if an agency will not give you a keyword report, I wouldn't trust them. And what a keyword report is all of the keywords that you spent even $1 on and what the results were by the month. So it should be able to show you, well, I bid on this particular keyword. I spent $1.50 on it. Did it produce any actions or any conversions? And the easiest way to analyze that is just sort by your cost column, go down and look at truly did I have a good ROI, and remove the keywords or remove the things that are not producing a result.
So let me ask you this. You brought up at one point early on, you just said tracking the leads and stuff like our cost per lead and stuff. So we just were on a group call.
Yeah.
And Google had just come out with a study that said, I think it dropped from 70-something%, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I remember it dropping a considerable amount. 70-something%, I believe, of a few years ago, where people were willing to produce a lead form. So that's where you're going to be able to measure, I spent this amount of money, this is how many leads came in, versus now a much lower percentage. I want to say off the top of my head, and these numbers could be way off, but it's just a considerable drop, like 40-something%, I believe, are now willing to produce that lead. I might have been 41, 42%. With that said, if people, how are dealers then measuring the success if all of a sudden, just by society might be clicking, they might be looking, they might be doing this stuff, how do you keep the cost per lead improving when that dynamic might be against you? Or what else, what's a business owner to do on that?
So as an agency, our goal, regardless of what the consumers are doing from a standpoint of they're filling out less lead forms, is to continually look at how do we lower our cost per lead number, right? So whether that's phone calls, contact lead forms, and the way you do it is you can get significantly more targeted. So I'll give you a couple examples. Inside of Google, you can look at interest groups. So for instance, one thing that we all strive for, at least on paid search, is to increase a metric, what's called your quality score. So Google gives you a ranking from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And the higher your quality score is for the keywords of the campaign that you're bidding in, the lower that you can pay per click, okay? So if I'm a car dealer, for instance, and I have a $5,000 budget, if I can get more campaigns to have a higher quality score, what in turns will do is it will stretch out my dollars. So what I would be doing is I would see how can I increase my engagement? How would I increase my click-through rate? So nowadays, one of the features that Google's rolled out is what's called responsive search ads. So what that does is it dynamically creates your headline based off of the search query. And that's huge because the more relevant your headline is to the actual search, the more likely you are probably as a consumer to actually click it. So if I can improve my engagement, or I can improve my time on the website, or I can improve metrics like calls, then I'm okay with my contact forms dropping. And then I'm sure you're aware Google also rolled out store visits as well, which is another way to track traffic, so people that actually come to your individual store rooftop.
All right, so do you see any impact with that, especially while we're in hopefully the tail end of COVID, but it might go a little bit further, and some people still may not want to visit stores as much, right? Is that having an impact on any of that?
Actually, the data that we're seeing, so let's stay in the automotive and then we can talk about other industries. Currently, right now, Google rolled out data specific to the automotive industry. And since March, it's been week over week increases in terms of searches online. And then actually at the end of May, we saw our first year-over-year gains in automotive searches, and they feel like that trend's going to continue. So digital marketing nowadays has become extremely, even more important than it was pre-COVID, because the reality is people are sitting at their house shopping from their phones, shopping from their computer, shopping on the internet. So as a general manager, as an owner of a business, you really have to, if you're spending a lot of money in marketing, you really have to start understanding digital or have somebody on your team that can hold an agency accountable.
So if your main tip is to understand the numbers and actually know what your ROI is on this per campaign, or where it's working, where it's not, why do you think that there are some business leaders out there? What keeps them from doing that? You're just looking at numbers. So why is that an issue?
Because I feel like a lot of owners and businesses have known everything. They've always known everything in their business, right? For the last 20 years, they've been the smartest person at their company. And they typically knew the most about sales. They knew the most about their products. And this is the first thing that's came in that they don't understand. And a lot of them don't have the time to kind of sit down and relearn, kind of go back to school and understand it. So they either need to find somebody that they can trust, that they can lean on internally, that's going to be able to show them what the ROI is, or take a quick little class or learn a little bit online about how to read basic reports inside your Google Analytics or reports that are given to you from your agency.
All right. So if I'm getting these, I can tell you as a CEO, get all kinds of reports, get all kinds of data, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you look at these things and you're like, son of a bitch, where do I even start to look? Shit's everywhere. So how do you, what is, I guess, if that's happening what's a simple way for these business leaders to get this information?
Well, so let's go back, right? So I'm on a lot of calls with whether it's owners or marketing directors. So don't think for a second this is limited to owners or presidents of companies. A lot of marketing directors, when we do our optimization calls, it's yeah. Oh, everything's going good. We had a good month. Or if it's our customer that's a framing, projects are full. Or if it's our agriculture, business is up. It doesn't matter. That's kind of the response, right? So the first thing that I would do is I'd constantly question. Are you providing to them how your goals have changed this month versus last month? Typical companies, we have to pull that information out of. And that's very, very, very important because your bidding strategy should align with your new goals every month.
Well, we just had a conversation on that group meeting with D-Win where that came up specifically. Mm-hmm. I believe it was Matt Kellogg who was stating that, listen, we had to completely change our entire account structure because we don't have, their inventory is virtually non-existent right now.
Absolutely.
So they had to go to the focus on used cars, right?
Absolutely.
And so is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I'll give an auto and a non-auto example. So in the automotive industry, a dealership has certain inventory levels by model, correct? And in addition to that, there's incentives that come down from the manufacturer, whether that's BMW, General Motors, or Ford. So based off of how many new vehicles they have on their lot by model, and based off the money that they're getting from the manufacturer incentive to sell them, their goals are going to change on a monthly basis. But typically, there's never that conversation. It's never to say, hey, no, I actually have more 5 Series than I do 3 Series. What's my budget on 3 Series versus 5 Series? Or on the display ad side, hey, are we focusing more on the 5 Series because we need to sell more of those particular vehicles? Or in this case, we're going in a shortage of new inventory. Hey, I want to take a lot of my budget out of new inventory and switch over to certified pre-owned or used. We work in the agriculture industry. It's no different. There's all these equipment categories in the agriculture, and some of it's seasonality, right? In terms of tractors or combines. Every month, every quarter, you have to reset with your agency to kind of say, here are my new goals, and are my budgets aligned with those goals? So that would be number one. Number two, and I don't care if it's a marketing director or a business owner, business owners, we, right, as you as an owner, me running the company, we spend hours staring at a profit and loss statement every month, right? Go through the income statement, we go through our balance sheet, we spend hours upon hours trying to cut every nickel and dime or see where we can increase it. But typically very limited time is spent on running through the reports, understanding the reports that your agency's giving you to see where the wasted spend is. Because there is wasted spend there. Yeah. We're looking at a client that's large in plumbing and HVAC. And they sent us over their reports. They spend $50,000 a month in Google paid search. $50,000. With one sort, and inside of 45 seconds, we saw about $7,000 last month that they spent on that produced 0 leads. So keywords that they were bidding on, some keywords they were bidding on, it was equipment they didn't even have. Or in locations that they don't even serve. So if you sit down with your agency and you hold them accountable, you'll be able to find that wasted spend, and you can either take away that money or you can add it to other campaigns that are performing better.
So what major changes do you think have happened in the last few years with digital marketing? Major changes.
Well, the first thing in a lot of industries is utilizing customer data. And this has been critical. So if you think about it, the most valuable asset that any business has is a customer base, right? Which is why cyber liability, which is why J&L, we have a $10 million cyber liability insurance, because nobody wants their customer base to get into a competitor's hands, right? But most of them are not using it online. So obviously a lot of people know that you can upload a list to Facebook and to Instagram and serve one-to-one marketing. But what a lot of people are not doing is they're not taking advantage of that in Gmail advertising. So those are ads that are in like the promotions or the social tabs, the top 2 emails that you have. A lot of people aren't taking advantage of it on display advertising. So just saying, hey, I have inactive customers, or I think there's a reason why I should reach out to the people. I'm going to push out display ads to them at a fraction of a penny per impression. And then where there's a huge advantage that most agencies aren't taking advantage is using it for paid search. So the reason why that's important is, let's take the hot sauce company that I said earlier. They don't have the budget of Tabasco. They just don't. They're not going to be able to spend millions of dollars a month. They want to play in the paid search game, but they can't just bid on the whole country for anybody that types in hot sauce for sale, correct? But over the years from their website, they've gained a significant amount of people that have bought hot sauce, ketchups, gourmet foods from them. So what you can do is you can take that list, upload it to Google paid search, and set up that up as an audience. And when those customers go on and they type in best hot sauce, habanero hot sauce for sale, you can specifically bid on them. And in the auto industry, you can do that with your previous customer database. You know, your CRM, or in the auto industry, they call it a DMS, where you can upload it. And if somebody that bought from you before, or it's a known Honda owner and you're on a Honda franchise, you're definitely going to want to have what's called a higher impression share for them. An impression share means the percentage of time that your ad is shown when that keyword is searched. So if you have a 60% impression share, that means 60% of the time your ad is populated.
So I would see that in auto is a big deal, especially with their service. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is the service tends to take a back seat. You're going to know more about other verticals, but from a marketing standpoint, service takes a back seat, and they're competing against national brands. Mm-hmm. So the nice part about auto is they're not typically competing against national brands for new car sales.
Correct.
But in service, they are the Jiffy Lubes of the world, Firestones, mm-hmm. all the tire companies. You know, all the different Michelin and all those different things. And so, how can an independent store, an entrepreneur, a business leader that's got, like you said, maybe a limited budget, how do they compete against these national brands that are spending millions of dollars to make sure they're in position number one?
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to just utilizing one of the strategies is the customer list. So, for instance, let's take the auto example on service, right? So, a Honda dealership is, of course, going to probably bid on Honda oil change specials, 2013 Honda Accord tires for sale, correct? But what ends up happening is people that have no intentions to ever come to a dealership typically don't put the word Honda in there. They're just going to put synthetic oil change specials or oil change near me. So uploading your customer database gives you a huge competitive advantage because you know they own a Honda. You can upload that list, and now for that audience, for the people that you uploaded, you create a separate campaign for them, and you can get more broad with your keywords and bid on things like oil change near me or oil change specials. So it gives you a huge advantage because you have to only spend a small amount. Your click-through rate's going to be great because you know it's a known Honda customer, and now you've helped to stop or reduce defection. Because I got news for you, if they didn't say the word Honda and they didn't say your name of your dealership, the chances of them actually wanting to come to you is slim to none.
So, going back to what you say, business leaders have got to dive in and understand their ROI. I would I would say that one of the reasons that business leaders don't do this is out of all the different marketing channels, digital seems to change the fastest.
It does.
And the scary part about when things are constantly changing is sometimes we pay attention to the big change, but there's a lot of little nuances or subtle changes that take place over the years that marketers, business leaders, they don't even notice. What are some of those little subtleties that kind of could have potentially a big impact on results, but I never knew, a business leader or a marketer might even, someone that's even paid to pay attention to it might say, I never really knew that.
Well, so let me go back a step. So if you know the data won't change. So I don't care if it's today or 10 years ago, we're still looking at what our cost per click is. We're still looking at on search my impression share. You're still looking at what is my cost per conversion. And by the way, you have to know what your agency's tracking as a conversion. Because a lot of times agencies say, well, these are all the conversions, but you as a business owner don't align with those. So what it should be done is your agency should be setting up the conversions based off of how you simulate what a conversion is, right? So the data never changes. Now, the strategy to improve those numbers is what you're paying the agency to stay up on top of. So if you're doing your job and you're pushing the agency saying, hey, I know the industry benchmark is 7% for a click-through rate. We're at 5%. What are you going to do to get that number up? That's where the innovation comes. That's where the agency has to really, really pull and say, well, Google rolled out this new strategy. We could try this strategy from Facebook. And the biggest thing is, and I say this at J&L, is we cannot be complacent. Every new update, every new audience that comes out as an agency, we have to push our customers to say, yes, I want to try that. Yes, I want to pilot that. So from a new strategy that most people wouldn't even know is a few things. Number one is zip codes or location-based bidding. So that is where you can find a ton of wasted spend. So as an example, if you pull a report over a quarter and you look at all the money you spent by zip code, where is your ROI coming from? Is it coming just from a few zips, and are you wasting a ton of money in other zip codes or other areas? If you're looking at towns and cities, I like to look at zip codes a lot of times because it's more exact. Are you spending more money in the zip codes that are producing results? Are you lowering your spend in the zip codes that are not? Or if you're a car dealerships, franchises, they get a primary marketing area, right? Or an area of influence that they're given. So if I buy a Zaxby's restaurant, they're going to throw me and say, well, here's your area of influence. These are the zip codes that we're going to focus on, that we're not going to put another Zaxby's location. But in that, there's zip codes that mean more to you because there's another Zaxby's location that's closer or right in the middle of, they can either go to your location or another location. Same thing with the car dealership.
Right.
So one thing that's came out is you can do bid adjustments by zip code. So you can actually bid up or bid down based off of, again, aligning with your goals. So if you're losing market share in certain zips to one of your near competitors, then what should happen is you should be bidding up in those zip codes to potentially steal back or win back that market share.
Let me. Where do you see the biggest challenges
Overall.
So, if you want to narrow it down to digital marketing, that's fine. But everyone is looking for whatever they can to differentiate themselves.
Right.
Right. What do you think is the biggest challenge in doing that?
Well, when you say everyone's doing it, first off, I'm so tired of hearing the word proprietary, because and every agency says we have this proprietary, but it is proprietary. It's proprietary to Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
So they forget to mention that this proprietary thing is actually using Facebook's technology or Google's technology. I think a challenge from a business owner is making sure that you're talking to the right person if you are working with an agency. So for instance, I am a strong believer that my salesperson is out of the loop once the account is sold and inked and deal, and that our client is working directly with the strategist or the analyst that's working in the account on a daily basis.
Why is that important?
Because all the salesperson is a middleman. They're not the one that's actually going in there and implementing it. They're just not. And they know surface level information when it comes to digital marketing, but they're not the one that's actually implementing it. So you're relying on a salesperson to understand your goals and then effectively communicate it to another person. And it just makes it murky. But a lot of agencies do that, because one of the things I would do if I was I don't care if it's a car dealership or a business owner, is, hey, who's my analyst going to be? And is that person going to be working in my account? Are they the one that's going to be doing the ad serving in Google and Bing and Facebook and Instagram? And if so, I want to know how many accounts they're handling on a monthly basis.
So you have an interesting attack and defend strategy when it comes to digital marketing. And we want to be preemptive here, right? Mm-hmm. So if we know customers are out there shopping, doing research, their own customers, and maybe like you said earlier, they're doing generic search terms, regardless of what industry or business vertical we're talking about. We want to be preemptive in making sure we're having these conversations with people or engaged with people before any competitor. It's one way that you can offset being marginalized or commoditized, right? So go into explain this attack and defend a little bit. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the defend to us is a previous customer, right? So whether that's a framing customer that has general contractors that they want to make sure that they don't lose, or it's an insurance agent, because we work in the insurance business, where it's an insurance agent of people that he sells maybe home and auto to, but he wants to upsell them to life insurance, or he doesn't want to lose them to State Farm, as an example, right? Or in the car business, we have our previous customer. So to have an effective defend strategy, you got to have a separate budget for it, and you got to have it across all channels. So it's kind of what I talked about earlier. You should be able to use your customer data across all channels. So you can upload it to Google for paid search. You can upload it to the Google Display Network for display ads. You can upload it inside the Google Display Network for Gmail advertising. If you're looking at doing pre-roll on YouTube, you can upload your customer list. So like one thing that I recommended for a lot of our clients is, if you're doing something special for COVID and you created a television commercial, we'll pull your customer base, put $50 to it.
Just so, what do you mean by special for COVID?
Yeah, so a lot of our clients, they were fearful that our customers don't know we're even open right now during COVID.
Okay.
And they're fearful that they don't understand the measurements that we're taking during the COVID to ensure their safety. You know, in the auto industry, maybe that's picking up and dropping off their vehicle for service, correct?
Yep.
So they spent $10,000 creating this big commercial that they maybe put on just their website. But all they had to do is if they really wanted to get it out to their customers, yeah, they can send an email blast. But I mean, how many COVID-19 response emails did you get? Right? A ton.
Yeah.
And they all got delete, delete, delete. So what you could do is literally for a very small budget, you're talking $50, $100, upload your customer database. Typically on average, you'll get a 40 to 60% match rate. And you could do that video in newsfeed on Facebook and in Instagram. You could do it on YouTube as pre-roll to the video of what they're going to watch. So utilizing this customer data, again, it's got to be a very flexible, and it's got to be something that based off of your goals every month.
And so as a marketer, I would look at that and say, I'd still want to do the email, but for what you're saying, $50 to $100, depending on the value of a transaction, I guess. I'd still want to. It sounds like, because I do agree, there's a lot of deleting going on, or even just not everybody's reading every email.
Mm-hmm.
So would you advise as in a silo or more working with other channels?
All other channels.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in omni-channel. So you're going to do your email, you're going to do your Facebook, you're going to do your Instagram, you're going to upload it to Gmail and to YouTube, you're going to do your Google display ads. We want to try to get this message out in a very affordable manner, but obviously hit customers that they truly understand, because it takes a lot of impressions for a customer to remember what your message was.
Yeah. Where do you see business leaders making mistakes or missing the boat when it comes to digital? Where do you think that's like, what's the number one mistake you see?
Well,
yeah, listen, you're not saying any specific company, so just say it.
Well, I think it goes back to not being able to read the data. So how can you spend $10,000, $15,000 on something a month, right? I mean, we have clients at J&Ls that do 7 figures a year with us, but yet you can't read the data. So if you don't know what your ROI is, and you don't understand the strategy.
So our clients, so just to be clear, our clients can read the data.
Well, I think to your point earlier, it's on the agency,
right,
to be able to explain the data. So a lot of reports that I get from other agencies, it's hidden. They want to talk about, well, we sent out this many impressions. This is how many clicks we got. But you have to go to page 15 to actually get to the meat and potatoes.
Right.
On my page 1, right, let's be honest, when we look at our P&L, we skip to the back to see how much money we made that month.
Right.
Correct? I mean, that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
So I want to start with the most important metrics, and then I want to be able to dive in deep and figure out, well, why did that work so well, and should I be putting more money to that? And if it didn't go well, what's the reason behind that?
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay ahead? In other words, what's your best source? Innovation comes from a lot of different ways, right? It's not always, well, I read a book or I go to a seminar. Like, where have a lot of your innovative ideas, how did it happen?
Right. So whenever I work with people and I'm talking to them, they're like, oh, I need someone to teach me how to do that, I'm immediately turned off. Because the reality is, if you talk to any entrepreneur or you talk to anybody that knows a lot about or is a subject matter expert and you ask them, how did you learn it? Their first response is, I learned it on my own. You can't be dependent on someone to hold your hand to teach you this information. So for me with digital is 7-8 years ago, I was amazed with it. It was one of these things that I knew that's where it was going in the auto industry because I was hearing dealers talk about it and I could hear their frustrations. And it kind of just interests me. But I also am very interested with change. So I also think it's fascinating, all the changes, all the updates that happen. So I use websites like Search Engine Land, PPC Hero, obviously J&L. We have a lot of blogs that we put out in terms of content. I follow Think and Grow with Google because I'm constantly looking at updates from Google. I obviously, now that we're status, we have a Facebook rep that we talk to, we can bounce out ideas off of. I look at other industries because, I don't want to be siloed to automotive. We have a lot of clients that are outside of automotive and you can learn a lot from the e-commerce side. the data that I talked about earlier and utilizing the customer data, that came actually from the e-commerce side. And
how specific? Talk about that.
Yeah, so I was attending what's called SMX. It's a conference. It's 2 times a year. One's out in New York. The other one's out in San Jose. And Google does a lot of big rollouts at this conference. And they went up there, and all of the examples, they were rolling it out. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago, where you could utilize customer lists now for paid search. And all of the examples they were giving for was e-commerce, similar to that example of the hot sauce company that I was telling you about. Hey, look, guys, if you only have $500 or $1,000 to spend and you can't bid nationwide, here's what you can do to kind of protect your previous customers and spend some money on paid search. Because Google's obviously a for-profit business, and they're looking at all these mom and pop shops saying, why are they not wanting to do paid search? Well, it's because, after a day, their whole budget's gone. Right? So they rolled that out, and immediately I started thinking about the auto industry, because it doesn't matter what industry, your previous customer database is the most valuable asset that you have. So that's kind of how that came to fruition, and it's obviously helped out J&L Marketing a lot.
So many tools out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's very easy for a business leader to see a new shiny toy, tool, something that they think potentially can be a game changer, differentiate, give them a competitive advantage, right? What tools are out there, though, that you think will become much more important moving forward?
So there's a lot of free tools, first off. So, agencies like ourselves obviously buy the expensive tools and stuff because, we have hundreds of clients. But, if you're a business owner and you want to see what your competition's doing on Facebook and Instagram, all you do is you go to Google, type in Facebook ads library. Boom, you'll click the link, and instantly you can type in any business and you can see what they're doing from a paid ads perspective. So it's a free tool. You can even put yourself in and see. It's going to show you if the ads are running on Facebook, if they're running on Instagram, if they're running on Messenger or the Audience Network. So that's a great tool. You can even click the ads and see, well, what landing page is it going to? So it allows you to kind of secret shop your competition, but also look at what you're doing. Google for paid search has the Google Ad Preview tool. So that's a really quick way to do it. Go to Google, put in Google Ad Preview tool, click the button, and instantly you can put in the zip code. You can put mobile or tablet or desktop. You can put the search query in, and based off of today's results, it's more accurate than you doing it just on your phone. And you put a search in, it's going to show on average what comes up for that particular hour. So it's a good way to look at, if you are spending money on paid search, well, what do my ads look like? Who's bidding on my particular zip code? If you're a car dealership and you're in a particular zip code, who's bidding on it? Who's bidding on my brand or bidding on my name? You'll be able to get that as well. For display advertising, you can use Moat, MOAT.com, where you can go on there and you can type in, and it's really reserved for like national brands, so you can't use it less in the auto industry, but you can look at it from the manufacturer, but you can look at all the display ads that they're doing. So it kind of can give you some really good ideas and suggestions on that. Outside of free tools, and then you have Uber Suggest as well, which is Neil Patel's tool.
Yeah.
Outside of those free tools, you can look at things like SEMrush, Search Monitor, SpyFu are a few companies that will give you a little bit more data that you might be able to find out, for instance, what's your market share in terms of a percentage, what's your keyword overlap, so it shows you what keywords you're bidding on over a period of time versus what the competition's doing. It will show you where you're sending the traffic to in relationship to your competition. So there are some great tools out there to use. And then, of course, inside Google, you can use the Google Trends report as well, which a lot of you guys probably are already using.
So this is kind of a hard question because we just went through COVID.
Right.
Would have been a lot easier to potentially say this prior, but I feel like a lot of businesses, because of COVID, has been forced to do a lot of things to shake things up. But any specific areas where you see things going to where they are going to get shaken up and have a major impact or shape the future?
Like in terms of technology for digital?
It could be it could be anything. Because if you sit there and say, well, let's take auto, right? We all knew that the horizon was more online and more streamlined that way. But I feel like that technology's been out there. Digital retail tools, buying online, those things have been out there, but they haven't really taken off. And I think a large part of that is because auto dealers have been doing very well, and it's hard to make changes when things are going good. Why rock that boat? Even though everyone knew that it needed to be done. Well, COVID comes along, and now it has to be done. Right? And so, man, they were quick to adapt to it. So that's off. That disruption, that shake-up has happened, right?
Right.
What else is out there coming up potentially where you think there could be a big shake-up? And maybe there isn't one. I don't know. There's always going to be one.
Right. I mean, I think what it's going to continue to go down the road is the customer experience. So what I mean by that is, while I've hated COVID, right, from a business perspective and so on, but I think as most businesses are going to come out of COVID, they're going to be better businesses. Yeah. They're going to maybe eliminate certain employees that, they've had for years that they couldn't make the decision on, right? But also it forced innovation, which I absolutely love. So let's just take a restaurant in general. A lot of restaurant owners, they improve their takeout process as a result. They improve their sanitation as a result. They're delivering food, where before they relied on like a Grubhub or somebody like that, they figured out a process to deliver food.
And if you're a decent restaurant, not fast food or just something you could always go get, you still want to create, and if you're delivering food, a memorable experience. So I found a lot of them were doing things that differentiated them or made you feel like, oh, wow, that's nice, to where it didn't feel like you were just pulling it out of a to-go box.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of restaurants became very creative in how they did that.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the automotive experience, the automotive world, so many of our clients are doing pickup and drop off. Yeah. And, we're going to think back 5 years from now and say, well, hold on, a customer was willing to spend $800 on a repair order and we couldn't go pick up their car at their house, take it back and then drop it off to them. We made them come in, hassle them over a loaner car and all this type of stuff. So I think the customer service is going to continue to improve after COVID.
It's such a great point because I can go to Jimmy John's or I can call Jimmy John's and they're willing, and I can get a sandwich within 5 minutes and they're willing to deliver that $3 sandwich to me.
Absolutely.
But you're right, an $800 repair order, and we used to fight that. So that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
And quite honestly, there's probably a lot more transactions, a lot more sandwiches being delivered than go through a service drive each day.
Absolutely. I mean, buying a car, right? The number one frustration we've heard for 10, 20 years is customers hate buying cars because they're at the dealership too long, right? They're off. We work 5 days a week and we're off 2 days, right, for the weekend. And Saturday's typically the day that a lot of people shop for cars. Yeah. So I'm going to literally spend 50% of my day off at a dealership, sitting there for 3 to 4 hours, doing the paperwork, doing the whole process. So I think the customer experience, and it's really going to hurt people like Carvana, because the whole Carvana was never the cheapest. But what they advertised was they advertised convenience and they advertised the 7-day return policy. That was their advertisement. So a lot of dealerships said, well, because they were forced, we're going to do a similar Carvana model. And you know what? Because they're actually getting the trade-ins, they're going to get the cars cheaper and be able to be just as competitive, if not more competitive.
Consumers never take a step backwards.
Correct. So,
in other words, I have to tell you, one of the benefits, because, when you had the COVID stuff and you had the stay-at-home stuff, right, you started having to do things at home, right? So we got a birthday party for my wife. I got to pick up. So I'm the one in charge. I got to go pick up the curbside delivery for the food.
Did you really pick it up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I did.
Right.
I had to do the curbside pickup for the food. I had to get the cake. I had to do all the things that you got to do to get it ready, right? It's kind of like a little surprise I did. Went over great, by the way. I won major points. And all the other couples that came over, the wives were impressed too. I scored huge points, and the other husbands did not like it. But I have to tell you, in a normal situation, all right, let's say I want to have, because I'm not going to be the one cooking at home.
Right.
So even if I wanted to do this non-COVID, I would have ordered out and had to try to make it look like I didn't, right? Mm-hmm. So it was packaged in a way that didn't seem takeoutish. I was able to bring it home and have it done in a way that was like I had a chef in the kitchen, right? Then, but what's great is in a normal world, pre-COVID, right, I would have had to go there, get out of my car, go in, pick it all up, somehow bring it home, or go now to the and follow this. I didn't have to get out of my car one time.
Imagine if you had kids. Yeah. And you had car seats and you had to pull them out of the car and all that.
And great point. And so I never had to get out of the car. I was just driving, I text, out comes my order. I'm telling you, consumers, the one thing everybody looks about, what's going to be the next disruption? And, Jeff Bezos says it's best. Quit worrying about that. Worry about what's never going to change, right? And what's never going to change is people want things faster, easier, quicker, less, for less money if possible. Those things don't change. And the companies that truly disrupt find ways to do those things better. Netflix is a perfect example. They're delivering the same product as Blockbuster. They just did it in a way a customer wants to get it better.
It's funny you bring that up because, ad creative, right? I talked a lot about paid search, right? So one of my big frustrations, and I don't care the industry, right, is the ad creative hasn't changed pre-COVID versus post-COVID, which is crazy to me. Like, if you're a car dealership and you're doing ads on service right now, and I can look at it through the Facebook ads library, and you're not advertising what you're doing from a pickup and delivery, from a sanitation standpoint, how you're handling it, you're missing the mark completely.
Yeah.
And that's on you, but it's also on your agency that they didn't ask for that information and they didn't push you to say, hey, I know you're doing this because it's on your website. If you're going to sit here and spend $1,000, $2,000, we should probably advertise it because we're not getting clicks as a result of it. Same thing on paid search. There's a lot of website providers out there that have the templated paid search ads. And your description line should have changed post-COVID in terms of what you're doing, in terms of your offering. Your headline should change. If you're bringing test drives to consumers, that's pretty important. You should probably mention that in your headline. Same thing with pickup and drop off. The other thing that I would mention to you guys is Instagram. Instagram is performing almost as good as Facebook. But a pet peeve of mine is most people run the same exact ads on Instagram as they do on Facebook. First off, from a sizing issue, it's way off. So you have to just resize the ad. So if all you do that, you're at least ahead of 50% of the people. And you can see that in the Facebook ads library because you can hover over the ad and you can see that one ad is on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger, where you should see this ad is just running on Facebook and then this other ad is running on Instagram.
Right.
And then, of course, the copy should change a little bit because you have people on Instagram that's more on the picture side versus Facebook that you can do more text. So you have to know your platform and know your audience and have your ads adjust to that.
All right. So let me ask you this. How would you sum up everything we just talked about? A few final thoughts, final advice for the audience listening.
Yeah. So, I think it's a lot of information we talked about, right? And so I think you start at the top. So number one is understand basic metrics, right? Understand what your cost per lead is. Understand how leads are being tracked. And on top of that, understand out of the money that you're spending, let's say you're spending $10,000, where is every dollar going in terms of location, zip codes, but also in terms of channels, and then inside of the channels, who's the audience, okay? Number two, make sure that your strategy aligns with your goal. If you're struggling in the auto industry selling Honda Accords and you're doing display audience, you're doing display advertising, are you doing in-market for Honda and in-market audiences for sedans and doing Accord-specific ads? That's what's great about data nowadays is you can layer audiences. You on top of that can layer interest groups. That's one thing that we're piloting right now is looking at not only people that are in market for a Honda and Accord, but what are they interested in, and removing interest groups that aren't performing as well, and then adding on interest groups that are performing even better.
Yeah.
No.
Well, when you're layering in that stuff too, let's just talk Facebook for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
The increase in ad cost can go up as much as 20-25% a quarter.
Correct.
Which means if your creativity or if your ads don't become, whether it's data and the way you're targeting or you're layering with your audiences or the creative or the copy doesn't become at least 20-25% better, you're going backwards on your ROI. It has to keep outperforming the cost of the ad.
Correct. Correct. So you have to become more of a targeted audience, but in addition to that, your ad has to be more specific to the audience. So like a good example on Facebook is you can do broad audiences in Facebook where you can actually take your vehicle inventory. So all the vehicles that are in your inventory, you can go after people that have never visited your website before, but have gone on Car Gurus, have gone on Auto Trader, and you can dynamically, based off of the type of models they've looked at, show vehicle images on Facebook ads of vehicles that are in stock for you. So if you own a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealership and you know it's somebody that's interested in a truck because they were on Car Gurus, Auto Trader, and competitors' website looking at trucks, when they get on Facebook, we're not going to just show them, come to ABC Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. We're going to show them the Ram 1500s in a carousel ad to be able to look at.
I had a person at one point say to me, they received, everyone always says, oh my God, I said this into my phone and lo and behold, I got this ad or whatever. They're always amazed at how relevant an ad might be. Mm-hmm. And it becomes really from audience layering.
Correct.
And so, in other words, I had a person that came to me and I think and I don't remember the exact state, but they lived in one state, mm-hmm. literally moved out of the country to Europe, and were a big sports fan. And so the ad was literally created on a sports jersey from where they used to live, but said London people who love boom.
Absolutely.
Right? And this person came and see, how did they know all this? How did they know to create this ad? It's because in the old days, it was one ad for this big mass of people. Well, now I'm just going to layer in and say, all right, find me this big audience, and this big audience, and I'm just going to aim for the where they all overlap. And I'm going to create one ad to that and make it extremely relevant.
Absolutely. In Google Display, there's an audience called Custom Intent, and there's different audience selections that you can do. One is you can go after competitor websites. So you can go after people that went on your competition's websites that never visited your site, and you can serve them ads in specific zip codes. So what's great about that is you can go to the final destination URL. So we can serve ads to people that go on your competitor's website that specifically visited their service page and send them a service ad. You can also do people that searched. So maybe they searched a keyword that you were bidding on and they never clicked your ad, but now they can become in my display audience and I can actually serve display ads. We do that with the hot sauce company because we can't spend a lot of money on paid search, but we can get 1,000 impressions for $4, right? So we're trying to create awareness that when somebody's at Kroger's or Walmart's, they recognize it, that now they're starting to see impressions all for this particular hot sauce brand all over the place because we know that they were interested because they were searching for hot sauces.
All right. Listen, Move Crush Count is about helping people differentiate themselves. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think differentiating themselves is, all right, what unique service can I provide? How can I add more value? And all that's true. But you can also differentiate yourself in becoming much better from a marketing, being more preemptive, like we said, defending your customer base, doing things on paid search that other companies just are not doing, and preemptively start marketing to them and engaging with them and having conversations with them before they sell themselves online, before they leave you and defect, right? So I want to thank you. listen, if you don't follow us, make sure you join. We've got 2 groups you can join. We've got it on the Move Crush Count Facebook group. We've also got one on LinkedIn. You can follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Move Crush Count, and also you can subscribe on move.crush.count.com. Thank you, Jamil Zabaneh, for graciously agreeing to do this interview with us on Move Crush Count. I also want to thank the MCC Nation for tuning in. This is the last episode of Season 1. Make sure you pay attention, you subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to move.crush.count.com, join our Facebook and our LinkedIn groups, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, because you're going to want to make sure you know when this episode drops, but more importantly, when Season 2 starts and all the special guests that we've already got lined up for it. So we'll see you soon.